Welcome to Kelly Minds Her Manners, a podcast about real estate and entrepreneurship with a twist. Here's your host, Kelly Robinson.
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Kelly Minds Her Manners, where I have the pleasure of interviewing the powerhouse, Alicia Elatassi. She is from Houston and she wears so many hats. And I love that because I'm the type of person who needs to be doing about 20 different things at any given time. And so I can completely relate to her. She is a former teacher. She grew up in a household with a dad and a mom who really supported her independence. Her dad came from a very patriarchal family, but he ended up changing and really supporting her independence as a woman. And you're going to hear her talk about that. She is a blogger. She is an author of Querido Papa, which is Dear Dad, which you can find on Amazon or other places where books are sold. She is a fashion stylist and she's got a great, bold look. I absolutely love it. She's also a mentor to women over 40, and she really loves to support women in their 40s and over 40 to reach their full potential, which I love. I don't think there's enough of that. And she also has a podcast, Vibes by Alicia. Get ready for a great interview with a woman who wears many hats, and her main job now is real estate investing, which she does with her husband in all sorts of different investments in real estate. And she uses her fashion sense to be the person who renovates and picks out the finishes and decorates. And she talks all about that. So I can't wait for you to hear from Alicia. Alicia, thank you so much for being here, especially a Memorial Day weekend. Yeah, I know we all have stuff going on, but you took some time out of your schedule for me, and I'm grateful for that. I'm super excited to interview you. You just seem like you have so much energy and such an entrepreneurial spirit.
Thank you. Yeah.
I love that about you. I listened to some of your podcasts, which we'll put your podcast in the show notes, and you can talk about that later too. But it's very cool. And I love that you really support women in their 40s. I'm in my 40s and there's not enough of that, there really isn't.
I agree. I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So let's get started. I like to start from the beginning, from childhood. Okay. Mm-hmm. I want to know your story. I want the audience to hear your story. So I usually like to start from the beginning, right? And see how your childhood shaped or maybe helped to shape who you are and where you are now. So where did you grow up and what was your childhood like?
Yeah, so I did. My childhood, I really believe, just really shaped me and who I am and what I do now, and the reason why I'm so restless and I'm just always doing something. It was like impossible for us to sit down in my mom's house, in our house. Like my mom always had us up doing something. Resting and taking a break was just out of the question. Like, you were always doing something because she always said, well, did you finish that? Well, you could have done that. Instead of laying around, instead of waiting around. So I was raised in the north side of Houston. It's a very old neighborhood in Houston, Texas. It is predominantly 80% Latino and then the 20% white community. It was one of the first communities in Houston to really start to change in terms of the demographics that were here. Our house was built in the early 1920s. So it was one of those first neighborhoods in Houston, where it was predominantly white. It was very neighborhood oriented. And then over the years, it just started to change. It just started to really become, more diverse and just much more multicultural in terms of where we were. And, it was one of those communities where you drive around and you hear music playing. There's people outside, people chatting, neighbors talking. So I grew up in a really fun area, a lot of music and a lot of fun, but it was actually, quite poor. So my daddy was a maintenance worker and my mama was a stay-at-home mother. And so when it came time for us to go to college, it was super important for us to do like really, really well in school because, that was the only way for us to be able to attend school was to go through scholarships or, Pell Grants, that kind of thing. Back then in the early, I guess it's 1993 when I, went to college.
Wow. Yeah. And that 1920s style home is one of my favorites. I love pre-war homes. It's just so much character and
so pretty, but they're so cold in the winter time. Or it doesn't get very cold in Houston, but it gets really cold because they're just very wooden, and there was not a lot of insulation in those houses. But Houston doesn't get very cold, so it's maybe 1 or 2 days out of the year that it gets really cold.
Yeah. So you went to college. What did you study in college?
I studied education. So I have a master's in administration. So I worked as a teacher for many, many years, about 16 years. And then 7 years, I was a supervisor at the college level. So most of my life was in education, bilingual ed. And, at the last few years was in administration.
Okay. Yeah. So you were a teacher for almost 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
What inspired you to switch gears?
I think I was just ready for a change. Education and then the school system just really can burn you out. Yeah. There's a lot of mental exhaustion. There's a physical exhaustion, but I think the emotional part is really difficult and you have to be at it every single day and you can't, show your kids, your students how exhausted you are because they're depending on you. And sometimes you're the only person that they can depend on. Yeah. So, just got to a point where I was just ready for a change. My husband's always been a business owner. So my kids were ready to go to middle school and I was just ready to go into my own business and just do my own thing.
Yeah. And was it when you were teaching or after you were teaching that you wrote Querido Papa? Is that correct?
Yeah. Querido Papa means dear dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And were you in school or were you teaching in school or were you out of school when you wrote that?
I started writing that book when I was teaching because one of the things that I was always talking to the parents was my story, right? How I was brought up, my story with my father, because my father came from a very patriarchal community, a very patriarchal family. So raising an independent girl in this new country, was not easy for him and not easy for my mother. So how do they raise an independent girl, right? How do you let her shine? How do you give her the opportunities to be herself without bringing her down or without like cutting off her wings? So I would have these conversations with the parents all the time. And I would always say, well, my dad changed. I had a father who was very strict and very strong, but he changed for me because he knew I needed to grow. I needed to, be independent, to be that girl that I needed to be because I just had so many goals. I had so many dreams. And he always encouraged me to have an education, but at the same time, he didn't want me to leave home. So I didn't go to UT, which is University of Texas, because he cried so much and I just felt terrible because he was just like, he thought I was leaving him forever. But I wish I would explain to him a little bit more how girls in this country go to school outside of their home. And that doesn't mean they're leaving home forever. That doesn't mean you're never going to see them. But I think that's what he thought. So I decided to stay in Houston and go to school here.
Yeah. And that's amazing and incredible that your father came from such a patriarchal family and changed and supported you as an independent woman. That doesn't normally happen with men who are from such an alpha situation. It just doesn't. So it's incredible that he was able to change that way and really support you as an independent woman.
And I think it has to do with, and that's part of the book, you have to communicate. I think it's so important that girls in their teenage years really talk things through with their parents, because a lot of times they just need to learn.
Yeah.
It's
true.
That's it.
It's so true. And you won awards for that book.
Yes.
Yeah. And can you still get that book on Amazon or?
Yes, it's still available on Amazon. It's available on my website.
Awesome.
I just did a book drive for 2 schools. So yeah, we still promote it as much as we can. I mean, it's been a while, but
No, but there are books. I mean, look at the 5 love languages. Look at how to win friends and influence people. Those books have been around forever. They're still relevant. They're still amazing. What was your first job ever?
You know what? I started with a sandwich shop. And I was a cashier because I needed a bilingual cashier. It was in a community that was very diverse. And they're like, oh, our ladies here don't know. They're the ladies that are only cooking and they don't know how to speak English. And they're like, can you come in and do it? I'm like, yeah, of course. So I was I was a sandwich cashier. And every once in a while I would go back there and the ladies would make me sandwiches and they were really sweet. And they were super cute. But yeah, that was my first job and I loved it. It was so much fun.
It's similar to my first job. I was, under working age and I really wanted a job. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom at the time. And she made it like her project to find me a job. And I was a strict vegetarian at the time. And she got me this job at this Boston Market knockoff called Way to Go Chicken. Oh. And I was the cashier.
I love the name.
Yeah, Way to Go Chicken. And I was a cashier there and I came home smelling like chicken every day. And I loved the owner so much that I stayed longer than I probably wanted to. Yeah. Just because I was a vegetarian and it was all like meat and things that I could eat. And I also was like, I was like the bus person. I was like scrubbing chicken off of rotisserie grates in the back in the sinks. And then I finally, at one point I finally had just, was like, I need to do something more along the lines of what I enjoy. And so I got a job working at the gym because I wanted a free membership and I liked fitness and stuff. But yeah, I had to wear this trucker hat that said Way to Go Chicken. And it was before trucker hats were cool. And I had to answer the phone, way to go. And then when I got my driver's license, I was driving my dad's car around delivering chickens, and my dad's car stunk like chicken.
Oh my gosh.
So similarly, I had a job as a cashier at a food shop as well.
Yes, I loved it. I had a great time and I met a lot of really nice people along the way.
Yeah, I loved my boss. The family that owned it, they were such nice people, which is why I stayed as long as I did. So what inspired you to switch gears and open up a fashion boutique? I mean, I know that you said that it got mentally and physically draining, but what was it about fashion?
So I've always been a fashion, like I've always been interested in fashion, but I think the main reason why I opened the boutique was because it really had a very unique concept. For me, it was not just about the clothes, but I was going to be teaching classes in there as well, like small business classes. So I started teaching business classes. I started teaching like how to do your Instagram, how to build your brand. Yeah. So I started teaching, kind of like my customers, I would say, hey, on Wednesday, I'm teaching a class on how to create a MailChimp newsletter. Come on by, and I would just charge maybe like $25 per class per person. Yeah. And so that was really the main thing. And then I started creating events. And then the other thing that I'm a huge, traveler, my husband and I love to travel around the world. We always bring things back. So I always bring things back from our travels. And that was like one of the things that my customers love was like, oh, she's going to go travel. I wonder what she's bringing, So that was also a really cool concept that I incorporated into the boutique, but it was just so much fun. It was great. It was a lot of work. It was something that I considered my pride and joy, but because COVID started happening and a lot of things started shutting down, I had to close it.
Yeah. I mean, I can see why you would have a fashion boutique. I mean, I've seen so many photos and Instagram posts of you, and you have such a great fashion sense. Oh, thank you. I love how colorful everything is. I mean, I'm like a black and white New Yorker, right? Like I used to go into my office and the receptionist would be like, Kelly, can I please see a color? But I love all of your bright colors and your jewel tones and everything. Yeah. It's great. And you just put it all together so well. So you were also styling people, right?
I was, yeah. And that was something I learned along the way because I didn't know anything about styling before I was doing that. But as I started working with influencers and bloggers in the city, I learned a lot from them. And then I started doing it myself for my customers. Theirs was like an added value for them. And then they were like, oh, I'm doing a photo shoot. Can you help me create a look for my photo shoot? So that was another thing that I would add as a service. It was just really fun. And I love color. I'm a huge fan of the color yellow, of orange, of red. I love those colors. My lipstick is always a bright red or bright coral. I love those kinds of things. It's just,
and it looks great on you, and your earrings are fun and everything. I love your shirt. It's are those cheetahs or leopards?
Those are cheetahs. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Oh my God, that's great. I love it.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. So you really have an entrepreneurial spirit, and you wear so many hats, and I love that about you. Because so many people, and it's okay to focus on one thing, but I'm the type of person who, if I'm not busy doing a million different things and getting myself involved in way too much, I am miserable. So
me too.
I get it. But I think you beat me. So, oh
gosh, I don't think so.
Yeah. And what about eco fashion are you passionate about?
So after I closed the boutique, I came with a lot of lessons in the way that I was buying clothing and the way that I was contributing, I guess, to fast fashion, because we were having to switch looks all the time. And it kind of gave me perspective on how much waste there is on clothing and how fast it has to change. And then I started researching more on companies like Zara or H&M, Gap, a lot of those companies and the way they treat employees. And I just went into this whole research and learning thing. And I've always been a thrifter. I mean, I grew up that way just because we had to, and it was out of necessity. But I think nowadays women are really kind of becoming more aware of how our fashion affects our planet. Yeah. And I think one thing that I encourage, and because I learned how to style, is that I learned how to put older pieces, vintage pieces, or even clothes that you think may not have like a life to it, how to put it with something unique, something different, pair it with a cute pair of pumps, do a cool jewelry, like an accessory, like a big statement piece. Yeah. So I think it's just, just changing a little bit of how we see fashion and how we see our closets.
Yeah. And I agree with you. And I have issues around fast fashion as well because of the labor. Yeah. And you don't know who's being forced to make your clothes, who's in a concentration camp making your clothes. And it's just, it scares me if I go to buy something, if I see something I really like and I realize it's fast fashion, it scares me because I don't know. It's almost like, it's almost like mined diamonds. You don't know what people have had to go through in order for you to get that piece. As an empath, it's just something that weighs heavily on me. So back to your travel, you also created a travel box subscription. Now I've done like the beauty boxes and stuff like that. What's a travel box like?
So, and I started the concept and I started doing it, but it just takes a lot of work. But basically what it is, it's you basically sort of it's like a membership. It's a subscription. So every time I go somewhere, I'll always bring something from that particular place. For example, I was in Portugal a few years ago. So I went to the small markets, and I think the people who subscribe know that I'm going to go to the markets where there's artisans making the things. It could be a little jewelry shop that a young guy sets up, or a young girl who's selling shawls, something unique, right, from that country. So then I bring it in, I put it in the box, and there's typically like 3 items in there. So maybe a piece of jewelry, maybe another accessory, maybe like a scarf or something like that. And then I will also add postcards or stationery or pens, things that are uniquely special or unique from that local region where I'm visiting. So that's where that came from.
And
it was really cool and it was fun, but it just takes so much work.
Yeah. I mean, and you have to travel constantly to make that work. Was it like a monthly thing, or was it just kind of like
it was a monthly thing?
Wow. So you were traveling around the world monthly.
It was actually back before even COVID happened, that I was traveling every 6 weeks. After that happened, everything just stopped, so I just had to reassess everything that I was doing. I just couldn't do it at the level that I wanted to.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I sell real estate and we had a lockdown. And
Mm-hmm.
I decided, okay, I can either be miserable and sit here and feel bad for myself and wonder where my next paycheck is coming from
Right.
and try to sell stuff sight unseen, or I can go back to an idea I had years ago and form a startup. And and that's what I did. You then went into real estate investment with your husband.
Yes.
And you have a blog as well. Tell us about the 6 steps real estate investors need to take to be successful.
The 6 steps, yes. I think that was from one of the episodes that we did maybe a year or two back. So 2020, like I said, just kind of put a damper on everything. We were looking at each other one day. We were like, we need to do something. We can't just stay here. And we realized that there were opportunities for us to buy houses not far from where we were to flip.
Yeah.
Because interest rates, had started going down. It started to get a little easier. We had some cash because my husband had just sold a business. So we had extra cash on hand where we were able to compete in that way, to pay cash, no contingencies on things. We were asking for surveys. We were like, we weren't even asking for a lot as a cash buyer. We started contacting wholesalers. So little by little, we started pinpointing different areas where we wanted to go in and invest. We started with one house not far from our house, maybe 5 minutes away. And then from there, we started creating relationships with the people, with everyone around us. And then we started telling everyone, hey, if you know somebody who's selling or wants to sell their house, we're looking for properties. These are some of the things that we want to see in the property. My husband crunches all the numbers. And then what I do is I go in and I help with working with contractors, because that's always Spanish speaking contractors in Texas. That's really what they do. And my husband doesn't speak Spanish. So that's where I bring in some value. I work with the contractors. I set schedules with them. I pick out, I'm the one that does a lot of the design inside the houses. So I pick out the paint, I do the tile. I'm the one that selects all the different fixtures, that sort of thing. And then he negotiates. And so he does all the paperwork, right? And as a realtor yourself, that part of it, the negotiations, going in and trying to find where you can add value for the buyer and for the seller.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I can see where you would be involved in the design process just because of your sense of style. So
yes, and I love that. That's my favorite part. When my husband started talking about it, my eyes were like, oh my gosh, I can do the design. I'm like, can I just do that? He's like, yeah, of course. Like, that's what I want you to contribute. I want you to add that on there. And then I got really excited. But I think a lot of people assume that it's really easy and fun because they see it on TV that way. And it's totally not, fun all the time.
No.
I think we spend like every morning arguing with some contractor who can't make it on time, who can't, come in, or he doesn't have a worker to come in and do. I mean, we're just like, oh my gosh.
I know. I hear you. I mean, it's the same with people who watch the real estate shows on television, one of which I was actually, asked to be a main character on. And I was
just $1 Million Listing New York? Oh my God. I love that show.
But it's not reality.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. I mean, I've been on the show. I haven't even watched the episodes that I've been on, but I have respect for the agents on the show. Nothing bad to say about them. It's not reality to me. And on those shows, it's not the real seller. It's not the real buyer a lot of the times. The developers, yes, but the buyer who's buying is usually a stand-in, because who wants people to know that they're spending all this money on, and you know what I mean?
Yes. There's a privacy thing, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I always wondered about that, when I see it on the thing, because they're not always portrayed as, as nice people, right? Like a lot of them can be very nasty. And I just wondered about that. Like, how real is it? Is it like, because I love watching those shows. I'm all into all of those shows.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't really know the California people too well. I know all of the New York people. They can edit you any way you want. And that's another reason $1 Million Listing New York is not going to be renewing. and the producer from Bravo called me and was like, we would really like you to be on this new real estate show, like Sex in the City meets real estate in New York. And I was like, absolutely not.
What was your real reason why not, Kelly? Why wouldn't you don't think it's an opportunity for you to grow as a realtor?
It's totally an opportunity for like book deals, and these were going to be paid.
Yeah.
But you spend all of your time shooting, and they can edit you any way they want to. So you have a sip of champagne, all of a sudden you're a raging alcoholic. You have to be. I came from the entertainment business. I was an actress my whole life until my 20s. They can edit you any way they want to, and you don't have much control over that. And they have the rights to everything. So yeah, where you make the money from those things are book deals and whatnot. But also my clientele tend to be super discreet, and they appreciate the fact that I'm discreet. And I work with a lot of high profile people to the point where if they don't hand me an NDA, I hand them an NDA, and I'm like, I just want you to know that I will never speak about this. This is your home, and this is your privacy. This is your sanctuary where you get to go and escape. And this is not about me gaining anything from working with you, except, making a living. So, it just wasn't something I wanted to do. I also didn't want cameras in my house. I also was in a very serious relationship at the time, and my boyfriend was fine with whatever I wanted to do. But I didn't want to be like pretend dating people in the city and having cameras outside my bedroom door. You know what I mean? No, thank you.
Yeah, no, I get it. I understand that. Like, I think that's one of the things as women, I think about those things. Like, what if I do get an opportunity to just maybe do something like that, like reality TV or something? And then I think about it and I say to myself, am I willing to put my family out there and to give up privacy and to give up something that's like so important to me, which is my relationships with my kids and my husband? I don't know that I could do that either,
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I think in some parts of the industry, it's not a bad thing. I mean, look at all these people. They have book deals. They have separate spinoff TV shows. They get paid to speak places. I think with flipping homes and styling homes, it's a little bit more reasonable and realistic than the glamorous life of being a real estate agent. I mean, I've had to like file down furniture that wasn't sent correctly, put together myself. Like, it's not glamorous.
So true.
So, I guess it could be lucrative. I think you just have to write down a list of the pros and cons, you know what I mean? And see who's the producer and watch previous shows that they've produced and see, okay, is this show really about the before and the after, or is it about the villain and whatnot? Because it's about the drama, because people love before and after, and there doesn't necessarily have to be drama for it to be good. But with these other shows, they want the drama. You know what I mean? That's what gets the ratings.
Unless you're a producer on the show yourself, then you can definitely make more decisions, right? As a producer on the show. Yeah.
Totally. So would you say that real estate is now your main business?
So real estate has become the place that I go to just to fund all of my other projects, because it has been good for us. It's been a great place for us. We are now buying more rental properties just to keep them on hold for a bit. And then hopefully when the market gets a little better, sell them as they appreciate a little more. I think that's where it's heading. And I think that's what it's done for us in terms of a family and the business that we pursue now. He buys shopping centers himself, and he develops shopping centers as well. So there's a lot of really great things that comes from real estate. It could be commercial, it could be residential, but for me right now, that's kind of what's funding a lot of my other projects. Although I do have other things that I do, but those are just, for me right now, like real estate is really the thing that really just holds it all together.
Totally. And I was going to ask you if you're just doing residential or if you're diversifying, because I did do my research, and I read somewhere that you believe in diversification when it comes to real estate. So I wanted to know if you have diversified your own portfolio with commercial and land and other things other than residential.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
So we have developed two shopping centers outside of the city of Houston just because it's so
cool.
difficult to get permits inside the city,
I'm
that
sure.
outside in the more urban areas has become just much quicker, much easier. So that's something
Yeah.
we've been working on together and developing. He does a lot more of that just because he really works on leasing the properties out, the different and finding tenants and filling up the spaces so that then they can sell the spots. But for me, it's been really something where I've even considered getting my license as well. And so that I can just also work as a partnership with him on that.
Yeah.
And I think the next step for us is just buying some land so we can build some houses. There's a really great opportunity in Houston to buy land and build. We looked at the margins and they're pretty great. So that's kind of where we're heading next.
That's awesome. Well, if you get your license, let me know because Compass has a great office down in Houston. And I don't know if you would just work solo or if you'd want to work at a firm, but Compass is fabulous.
I read about the Compass story. So I also know a lot about Compass and how they got started and all of that. So definitely something that I definitely want to look into once I start finding a broker, I guess.
Yeah, well, just keep me posted. So you also have your own podcast, Vibes by Alicia,
Yes.
your own blog, and you still style people. You're in real estate investment. You're an active public speaker and mentor. You also invest in the personal growth of other women through Thinking Boutique, where they can build their personal brand and reach self-actualization. I love that. And you focus on women who are in their 40s, right? Or over 40. Yeah.
Yes. I think what's happening a lot now is a lot of women are thinking that they want to transition their careers. I think a lot of us are at the point where our kids have already grown up, where we have either kids in college or in high school. And I think we want to see where we want to go next and like, what is our passion and where can we make money out of our passions, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I come in and I talk to them and I create courses or I invite them into my life or my podcast just to give them some ideas on like how they can also monetize whatever they're good at and whatever they want to do as a side hustle, for example.
That's awesome. You wear so many hats. I'm so impressed with you.
Thank you, Kelly. I love
Yeah.
wearing a lot of hats. I'm like you said at the beginning, if you're not doing a lot, you don't feel happy, you don't feel satisfied. Like
Yeah.
that's me too.
My business coach is always like, Kelly, you need to pare things down. And I'm like, I can't do that. I'm sorry.
Don't ask me to do that.
Yeah, totally. So you are very much into Pilates, right?
Yes, love it.
Oh, yeah. So what's important to you about Pilates? Why Pilates? And what's important to you about the practice of Pilates?
For me, it really is about the breathing. It really is about the feeling of strength. That's very different from like lifting weights or running or going to a gym. I think there's a softness. I think there's a strength in that stillness that Pilates does for you. I was diagnosed with hypertension about 3 years ago. And
wow.
yeah, and so in order for me to kind of like work on that without medication, I needed to get on some sort of rigorous program. I started doing really hard workouts and I started hurting. My joints were in pain. So I switched. I said, I need to find something that's also hard and will give me a challenge, but that's not going to have me jumping on a treadmill or
Right.
I don't know, some machine or whatever. And that was sort of my thing. And so I was able to manage my hypertension by doing Pilates, by learning how to breathe. And then I also suffer from anxiety. So that's always been something that's always been helpful for me too, that breathing and that healthy sense of pushing and pulling on a machine. It just really, really helps me with that.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you're so open about your anxiety. I suffer from generalized anxiety too. And I've learned ways to manage it. But so many people don't want to talk about it. There's a stigma around these things. And I'm always so impressed when somebody is comfortable enough in their own skin to be open and vulnerable about that, because there are so many people out there, especially women, who suffer from anxiety and they just keep it all bottled inside and they don't tell anyone, and it literally eats away at them.
So true. It does. It does. And I was like that before I started podcasting. And I never talked about it. I never talked
Yeah.
about how debilitating it could be and and then I went back into the years into when it started for me. And it's been a very, very long time when I've been feeling anxiety. So having the podcast and having that platform, I really told myself this is the opportunity for me to talk about it and just give people some ideas on how they can also manage it themselves, and that it's
Yeah.
not just me, that there's a lot of us that deal with it too.
Yeah, I find that what works for me is if I start feeling anxious and I'm not the type of person that'll have an outward panic attack, but I will internally just feel like my stomach's in knots and my mind will be racing. I try to be grateful for something that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that gratitude changes my whole mindset and calms me down. And it's amazing how just some little things can help really, really take that anxiety down.
It's so true. Just a few changes that you can make really, really helps.
Yeah, for sure. Before we go to my fearless 5 questions, I wanted to know, is there anything on your mind today, anything at all that you want to share with the audience? It could be anything. I just love this question because you get so many different answers.
I'm just grateful that I have the opportunity to reach women. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful
Oh, thank
for
you.
the conversations we just had, because I think it's important that even though you're in New York and I'm in Texas, that we have some commonalities. We have things in common, even if we were raised different, even if we have different upbringings or backgrounds. We're women, we're restless, we want to do so much, we can do so much.
Yeah.
There's no reason why we can't. We can definitely get on a podcast on a Sunday. I have a busy schedule, it's a busy weekend with family, but for me, I make it a priority that if it's something that makes me happy and is an opportunity to meet somebody like you, that I'm going to put some time aside, and I'm going to tell my kids, I'm going to tell my husband, hey guys, see you in a little bit, I'm going to go record a podcast episode, and bye, because I'm taking care of
thank you.
you.
I appreciate it so much. And I'm the same way. Like, networking is key. Meeting new people is so much fun for me, especially like-minded women and strong entrepreneurial women who support and lift up other women. There are not enough women out there who lift up other women.
Yes.
Women tend to be jealous of each other and catty, and they dress for other women and all this other stuff. And we need to stick together.
I love that.
We
Mhm.
really do. We need to stick together and lift each other up and support one another. And I love the fact that you are an advocate for that.
Absolutely. I agree with everything you said.
Thanks. It's time for my fearless 5.
Okay.
So you get 5 fun questions. They're kind of random. You get 2 passes. So if there's one one or 2 you don't want to answer, you can say pass.
Okay.
But you have to answer at least 3.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Okay. So number 1, this one might take a little thought, but maybe not. It's a question that I like to ask regularly because I find that the answers are so interesting. What is something that you feel other people value that you don't necessarily value or subscribe to, and why?
Yeah, I think the idea that, okay, yeah, this is probably like a controversial thing that keeps popping up, but I just don't see how people do it. So there's this thing about don't work on vacations. When you go on vacation, don't work. I'm a worker. I am a vacation worker. I will go on a vacation. I will still be working because I just love it. I mean, it's like they say, no, we're going on vacation. You can't reach me. Don't even try to call me. I'm leaving. I'm like, nope, if you need me, call me. Like, if there's a question, you can reach me. But I think a lot of people are like, well, but that's not a vacation. And I'm
you
like,
know what? I'm right there with you. I'm a vacation worker too. And I have the utmost respect for people who need to shut down and take their break and just decompress. But I have literally had girlfriends lock my laptop and my devices in the safe and change the code because I was working on vacation. And I'm like, I love what I do. And I'm in a business where I have to be accessible. So
yeah,
I love that answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where is your favorite travel destination?
Oh my gosh, I have so many, and I really do love a lot of places. But I think one place that I've always thought I wanted to go back was to Croatia.
Yes, I love Croatia. Yeah.
Yes, it's just so beautiful, and just everybody goes to Italy, and I think they all like say, "Oh, Italy," but Croatia has such amazing beaches, the
Hmm.
food, the little
It's amazing.
cities. It's just,
Yeah.
oh,
What's your favorite part of Croatia that you've been to?
I think it's going to the small little towns along the coast
Yeah.
and just doing like little drives through the coast and just seeing the little towns. I love that. The little quaint locations are special.
Yeah, I agree. And you really get to understand the culture better when you're in a less touristy area. And I think that's so important. If you're going to travel somewhere outside of the
Mhm.
country, like get to immerse yourself in the culture.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I love that. Describe your style in one word.
Sexy.
Love that. Yeah, I agree. I mean, your style is sexy, but it's also classy. It's like a
Yeah.
mixture of both. And I love
Sexy
that.
and sophisticated.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so what would you regret more? Actions or inactions?
Inactions,
Yeah, I
for
figured that would
sure.
be the answer.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm an overthinker. So I'm always overthinking things. And I think if I could just stop overthinking something and just doing it and just going for it, I definitely would love that. But I just overthink things way too much.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, and number 5, if you could write another book, what would it be about?
Oh my goodness, that's a really, really good question. I would say probably, well, it would probably be a book on relationships. I'm very proud of mine. I'm very proud of
Yeah.
what I've developed and how we work together. And we work really
Yeah.
well together. But I probably wouldn't do it just because I'm so private and I just hold it very
Mm.
close to my heart. And we grew up together. He and I
Oh,
have been together since we were in college.
I
So
love that.
yeah, so every business that we start, everything that we go for, we are always partners in everything. And we have learned how to manage each other's strengths and weaknesses. So
Hmm.
that I see a lot of partnerships and I see a lot of marriages that struggle with that thing. And I'm always like, oh, but you should do this or you should do that. But I keep my mouth shut. I don't give
Yeah.
advice on that just because I'm just like, it's not my business. They want to do it their way. But I think there's a lot of really good strategies in the way that we do things.
I love that. And you know what? It's so impressive that you figured out that balance and that way to work together, because I mean so many people try and they can't. I mean, I worked on a team in the beginning of my career, and I will never name names, but it was a team, and the team leader was married to a team member, and they would get in screaming matches, and she would slam the door and he would be banging on the door, and then they would be like,
Mhm.
Kelly, tell so and so I said this. Kelly, I'm like, why are you holding me? You know, and it's
True.
hard when you work with your spouse because you're always together, and some people just can't figure out the balance. So when you can,
Mhm.
it's amazing, and I feel like
Yeah,
it brings you closer to that
it
person.
does. It
Yeah.
does. It really, really does. And I think there's certain things and there's certain strategies or certain parameters you should set in relationships when you work together and how you conduct yourself with each other in private and in public,
Hmm.
and the way we talk to each other and the way we give each other opinions, because he's always going to listen to what I have to say. And I will say, I have something to say about this. I don't agree with this. I don't like this business partner you're trying to bring into our circle. I don't feel good about him.
Yeah.
And he's very open to hear me out and to hear what I have to say. If there's something that's just not going well, we don't blame each other. We just go back and see how we can solve it and fix it. We're very good about just respecting each other's opinions and how we do things.
That's so important. And respect is one of the most important things
Huge.
in a relationship, especially for men.
Mhm.
Men need respect. So thank you so much for being on my show. I absolutely loved getting to know you better and listening to all of the different hats that you wear and things that you
Oh,
do. So tell everybody where they
thank
can
you.
find you, and we'll put everything in the show notes too.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kelly. It's been a pleasure. You have been wonderful, and your questions were just perfect. And they made me think. So
Oh.
thank you so much. You guys can find me at my podcast, Advised by Alicia. It's on Apple, Spotify, Google, all of the platforms. Also on Instagram, Advised by Alicia. That's my podcast Instagram. And then at the _ Alicia E is my personal Instagram. You can find me there. And I just published a new website, aliciaelatassi.com.
Amazing. So we'll put all of that in the show notes. You should definitely listen to Alicia's podcast. I listened to it this morning. It was awesome. And definitely follow her and her podcast Instagram and go to her website and learn more from Alicia, because she's got so much experience in so many different things. And there's a lot that she can teach you. So thank you
Kelly.
so much again, Alicia. You have been wonderful. And I'm so excited for my audience to meet you. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. It's been such a pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you. I will. Okay. Bye. Bye.
Thank you for watching and listening to Kelly Minds Her Manners. Make sure to subscribe to the show and don't forget to leave us a review to tell us what you liked about the episode. You can connect with Kelly at Kelly Minds Her Manners on Instagram and TikTok, or on our website, www.kellymindshermanners.com.